Welcome to our interview series featuring Gordon Kennedy.
PJ recently had the opportunity to travel to Nashville and sit down with Gordon in his home studio.
We hope you enjoy this episode. All right, today I have the pleasure in being in
the ample room.
The ample room. There's some amps and it's ample sized. I am here with Gordon Kennedy. This has been so long in the making that I had to speak sharply to Mr. Kennedy to remind him that we had not already interviewed.
That's still some weird thing. I don't know why, but I've done a few of these.
Yes.
And for some reason or another, in my mind, we did this show.
Right.
So maybe I dreamed it at some point, and now it's finally happening.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what you ate before you went to bed to have that dream, but you probably want to change your diet.
No, honestly, I really thought we had done this before. But
part of that is because we are connected because of Brody. Our buddy Brody we talk about on the show. He's down here. He's met Gordon. I think he's tracked some guitars here. He's gotten to know Gordon. And I have gotten to know Gordon over the last several years, which I'm kind of grateful for. We're jokingly calling this the sequel because we talked about it so much that he was convinced that we already did it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it's been a couple years because I didn't want this interview to be like Chris Farley. Be like, remember that time you wrote a song for Eric Clapton? That was awesome.
Idiot.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that guy. So it's a little bit better because we've been able to spend some time together. And you've had me over here before, and we've done lunch together. You've been over to Brody's house. And so it's really great to get to know you as a person. My wife and son were here. One time we were surprising Brody for his birthday, picked up a guitar. So it's a lot more comfortable.
And you've been good to come to some shows out, Vegas.
We did.
Did you come to a stadium show?
I did not. Okay. Not yet. Of course, that ship sailed, right?
Yeah. But you came to a Frampton.
I did not. Brody did. I like these memories. I wish I had these memories.
Yeah.
Brody did.
Okay.
These are all.
I do remember Frampton being there.
I'm going to write this down. These things that I didn't do that we're going to do.
Yeah.
But we're here because of Brody, and I'm very grateful for Gordon to take out time in his schedule here. And speaking of our friend Brody, Brody's a big birth year guitar guy. So either for his children or your own birthday. Yeah. What year were you born?
An expensive year for guitars. I was born in November of 59. So yeah.
November 28th, 59, I think it was.
November 28th.
Yeah. So right off to the left there is a burst. And we're going to get into that. We're going to tease that burst a little bit. Gordon's also a songwriter, producer, session player. About 15 yards to my right, there are 2 Grammys on a shelf back there, one for songwriter and one for production, one with Eric Clapton and one with Peter Frampton, and we'll get to those guys as well. Yeah. But I wanted to start somewhere probably really personal at this point. His father is Jerry Kennedy. If you don't know about Jerry Kennedy, look him up. You're going to hear a little bit about from his son. Unfortunately, your dad passed away about a little bit more than a month ago.
February 11, yeah.
And you just had the family services back in Shreveport.
Yep.
So this is all kind of fresh for you, but I really wanted to, we can't talk about Gordon without talking about his dad.
Amen.
So I just want to give you an opportunity to share with our YouTube friends here, who is Jerry Kennedy?
That's something that Ricky Skaggs said to Dick Boak at Martin when my dad had gotten a guitar back 70 years after being told as a 10-year-old kid that the guitar had been destroyed. 70 years rolls by and he gets the guitar back. And Ricky and I got on the phone and said, would Martin fix this? And let me call Dick Boak. And he gets on the phone with him and said, if you don't know who Jerry Kennedy is, he said, give me 2 minutes. So he starts rattling off all this, stuff that my dad has done, which, I would think that you or your parents know records.
Oh,
that
my parents definitely would, for sure.
He's, guitar on Stand By Your Man, the dobro on Harper Valley PTA. He's the electric guitar on Good Luck Charm Elvis, Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, Leroy Van Dyke, Just Walk On By, Bob Dylan's double album, Blonde on Blonde, Ringo Starr's second solo album, and on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
As a player. But then as a producer, when he was running Mercury Records and he became the head of the label at the ripe old age of 24 of the Nashville office. Signed Roger Miller to his record deal and produced all of Roger's hits, King of the Road, Dang Me, Chug Lug, England Swings, all that stuff. Signed the Statler Brothers and produced them for, I think, 31 years. Reba McEntire, her first record deal. Tom T. Hall, Johnny Rodriguez. Dad produced Tom Jones. Dad produced George Burns. And again, it's too much to wrap your head around. And he ran the Mercury office for a number of years here in Nashville. So, songwriter, musician, producer, executive at a label. So he's like a quadruple threat. And he's in the Musicians Hall of Fame as of 2007 with the Nashville A-Team players. He belongs in the Country Music Hall of Fame. So one day, hope to see that happen. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a little bit about my dad.
Yeah, amazing stories every time we were together. And I think you shared a very personal story that when he was in his last few days, they asked what he might want to listen to, put on the TV and tell him a little bit about that.
Once they started figuring out he had something to do with music, of course, that was his long answer. What did you do, Mr. Jerry? He said, music. So at some point, we brought in a replica of his 335 Gibson.
You'll see that in a few minutes as well. Records.
Yeah, and set it over on a stand against the wall. So this forced both of them to have to discuss more. What's that? Well, that's what Gibson did for me. Well, what did you use it on? And now he's got to start opening up a little bit. So at some point they asked, well, let's put your TV on a music channel. What genre would you like? And they selected classic country hits of the 60s, 70s, a little bit of the 80s. And we sat there for a few weeks hearing, I would say 25% of what they played on that channel over those weeks he was on as either a player, producer, or both. And hearing it up and down the halls, when I would come to visit, the second day he was there, and this was a rehab center, and passed a guy entertaining people in the dining hall with a guitar singing King of the Road. And I wanted to go, hey, just follow me down the hall. And then on the day he died, my brother Brian came in last of the three of us, the brothers, and said he just passed somebody down the hall here in Harper Valley PTA coming out of their room. So I was like, this is going to go on forever. We'll be hearing that forever. Yeah,
you've described that his fingerprints are everywhere in music, and so he won't be forgotten by any means. So I just one more story that I haven't heard from you personally, but in doing my research for the show, I watched all kinds of podcasts and interviews with Gordon. Just a true Southern gentleman. I think you were described as one of Music City's most beloved ambassadors. I read that somewhere. It's got to be true. It was on the internet. It was on the internet. You may have written it, but it was on the internet.
Well, I need to read it to make sure it's true.
That's right. But that's just the kind of guy he is. But you'll see themes in this interview of things that intersect that just don't have an explanation, although they have an explanation. And one of them was Gruen Guitars here in town, which I was just there yesterday. There's some guitars that are being built under George's name now. Yeah. And I got to play a couple of those yesterday, and really interesting small body guitars, but they're like cannons. So, so the story about when you were asked to go and play.
Yeah. And the timing was very interesting in that for a while I just kept putting it off because I, first of all, I didn't want to fall in love with another guitar and buy another guitar or whatever. So I kind of just put it off for a couple of months. But George would keep saying either through my dad or leaving me a message about, hey, come by and try out these guitars. Well, I was in Berry Hill, close to George's shop, and this voice was like, you need to go.
Today's the day.
And so I'm like, okay, I hear you. I'm going. So I made my way over to George's, walked in, made a beeline, asked whoever, can I help you? Where are George's acoustic guitars? And I sat down, I played, a handful of them, and these are lovely. But as I'm sitting there playing, behind my back, I hear this guy kind of holding court at the counter at the entrance there. And I'm thinking, this guy's not from around here. I turn around and look, and it's Tommy Emmanuel. And I went, I got to go meet this guy. I've got to meet this guy. Well, as I get up and start to walk towards him, then, all of a sudden there's this guy. Can I get my picture made? And you remember when? It's Chris Farley. When you played this show and that song. Oh, yeah. And he was so nice to everybody. Yeah. Like Garth nice, And I thought, I am going to sit down and wait for this guy. And as soon as the crowd kind of dissipated, I walked up to him and he grabbed the guitars. You're getting ready to leave. I said, I know you're trying to get out of here. But I introduced myself and he said, are you a guitar player? And I said, yeah. And we got to talking, and then one thing leads to another about his story coming to Nashville and Chet Atkins and the letter that got to him, from a 15-year-old kid in Australia, Chet Atkins, Nashville, USA, got to Chet.
Right.
and all this. He's telling me, I said, well, I kind of grew up knowing, Chet and Jerry Reed because of my dad. Oh, who's your dad? I said, Jerry Kennedy. He went, is your dad still with us? And I said, yeah. I said, in fact, he's in an assisted living place over in Green Hills. I'm headed from here to go there. Well, can I follow you and go up and play him some songs? I said, are you kidding me? He followed me over there. And I thought maybe he'd, play my dad a song. He played about 8 or 9 songs and did a little mini concert sitting this close to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And as he got ready to leave, reached over to grab my dad's hand to shake it and kissed my dad's hand. I just thought, and on the way out, I said, I know why you've been given this talent. Because I just saw it,
Right.
Anyway, yeah, that was something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sticking with your dad for a minute. Obviously, your influences there were guitars in the house, and there was a now very famous to the family, at least, what was it, a Seabird 100 jukebox?
The Seabird 100 jukebox was my first record player,
Right.
When I look back on it, and I knew how to flip that toggle switch on the back and the lights would come on.
Without getting electrocuted most of the time?
No, I shocked myself many times on it, either electrically or listening to Fannie Mae by Buster Brown. Either one would shock me into. And I'd just sit in front of that thing with my eyes closed and listen to records for hours. And I'm 5, 6, 7 years old.
Right.
But it had a sound, that thing. It had a way of sounding loud, but we could be talking, standing next to it. It just had this cool rumble to however they achieved that. It sounded fantastic. And so, that's what I was listening to records on first.
Yeah, so you grew up in a musical family. There was your dad and then your mom.
She sang.
They met through Louisiana Hayride? Is that
The
right?
Hayride, yeah, they were both performers on the Hayride separately, and somebody said, you ought to do a duet together. So they got put together to perform Who Wears Short Shorts? And did that song on the Hayride show. And then it went over so well, they said, you got to do it again. They did it another time, and then they started dating. He got married at 17 and had me when they were 19 and moved to Nashville when I was 15 months old, just to see if it would,
Right.
Dad was going to give it a month. One big, the college try.
Yeah, that's
give
right.
it a whole month.
Right.
And they had decided to come back. It wasn't happening like he thought it should or would or hoped. And they were homesick. So they packed a little U-Haul to go back to Shreveport. And Shelby Singleton, who had talked Dad into coming to Nashville to give it a shot, came in and said, don't go anywhere. Mercury Records out of Chicago is going to open a Nashville office. And so he had a job and was able to stay in Nashville. And then some other things would happen. Hank Garland having a car wreck, being in a car wreck, and caused my dad's phone to start ringing more and more for session work. And then next thing you know, he's like a permanent fixture on Music Row as a player and a, A&R guy at a label and producer, and then eventually an executive too.
So I heard another story about you'd get in your dad's car, you heard one style of music, and you would get in your mom's car and hear something completely different.
Yeah, in the days of 8-track tapes, Dad's car would have, the hits of the 50s, all the rock and roll stuff, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, all of that. And that's all fun, great music. You can't not be happy listening to that. Mom's car would be Otis Redding, Aretha Franklin, Junior Walker and the All-Stars, Sam and Dave, and all the R&B stuff. So she was, way big into that. So I was getting this steady diet of everything. And then if you combine that with the records that would come to our house,
Right.
in, these boxes, like it's big enough to have like an old TV set in it. And it would just be the LPs and stuff that Mercury and the subsidiary labels were releasing that quarter. So I was getting we'd go in my brother's
Stories about Brian and Shelby
everybody
dragging out of the boxes.
Well, we looked like soldiers getting letters from home, and I'd go, I'll take BTO and Rush and Rod Stewart, and Brian might be grabbing Mo Bandy and Shelby might be getting Confunction and some of these other things, and then we'd all go to our rooms and this
cacophony
chaos.
of
just insanity. But that was part of my education. I look at this, I still have all these albums. I probably have about 300 or so vinyl albums that I, got over the years as a kid. And I look at that the other day and I said, that's my education I'm looking at,
Right. Right.
Like some people might look at the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Right.
That was it for me. It's still here. I've still got it.
So both your brothers in music. I had a question. Is Shelby named after Shelby Singleton?
Yes.
I wondered about
in fact,
that.
he's his godchild.
I wondered about that because that was a
Yeah.
very influential person in your family's life, and,
Yeah.
and Shelby's the youngest, right?
Yeah, and Shelby, he produced Harper Valley PTA. He hired Dad to play on Peggy Scott and JoJo Benson. If you listen to Soul Shake, you will hear Shelby wanted my dad to play the sitar, the choral sitar. It's louder than the vocals on that record. I mean, it sounds like it's about to explode, but yeah, Shelby would, have Dad on sessions, but yeah, that's who my youngest brother is named after.
So one of the things, because we're going to get to the gear, don't worry, because this may be a segue into it, maybe not, but your brother Brian is the one that got you connected with Garth Brooks. So he has written for Garth Brooks. He tours with Garth Brooks. He did the Chris Gaines album. So he's been really connected with Garth, but
I did.
Yeah,
You're talking about me for
you
Chris.
did. I'm sorry, but your brother got you connected to him. You can maybe tell a little bit about
Brian,
that.
Well, Brian he hired Garth to do demos when Garth first came to town. And then eventually he would write songs that Garth would record. American Honky Tonk Bar Association, Beaches of Cheyenne, and I think he's probably had, 15 songs or somewhere around there done by Garth and spread out over 164 million albums, So, and has always been sort of a right-hand man to Garth.
Yeah.
For the touring years and everything, So he would be his songwriter for a few minutes, his basketball, teammate, pickup games, or his driver, bodyguard,
I think I'd want to be on Garth's team, as intense as that guy is. I don't want to be covering him. I want to be just giving him the ball constantly.
Yeah, and you want Brian on your team no matter what you're talking about. You just want him on your team. So
you guys are very athletic. You and your brothers, a state champion football player through Brentwood Academy right down the road here.
And so me and my youngest brother were on the state championship team. Brian was the only guy that wasn't on a state championship team in high school, but he's the only guy that played college football. He played at Ole Miss.
There's that.
Yeah, he was a defensive end at Mississippi.
So that's how he got connected with Garth. You always wonder these things.